When David Frankel's The Devil Wears Prada came out in 2006, Miranda Priestly was the boss you survived. She was the person the movie told us not to become, the version of success Andy was supposed to reject before it swallowed her whole. 20 years later, and she's the reason people are coming back. Quite a strange thing to happen to a warning. Andy Sachs was supposed to be the audience surrogate, the smart outsider, the normal girl dropped into a toxic workplace that runs on the judging of others. The ending makes its case clearly. She wins by walking away, choosing herself in the process. But the people didn't leave with Andy. They stayed with Miranda. The codes stayed. So did the office, the entrances, the cold voice, the little panic that hit the room when the elevator opened. Miranda stayed. And now, with the sequel hitting theaters, Streep, Hathaway, Blunt, and Tucci all returning, the real question is not whether Andy made the right choice. The real question is why we wanted back in the building. The movie gave us an exit, but we spent 20 years asking for another tour of the office. And that tour, that's The Devil Wears Prada. The Devil Wears Prada became one of the most seductive power fantasies of the 2000s, even though its ending is built around rejecting that fantasy. The film believes it is critiquing toxic ambition, and structurally it is. But the toxic ambition gets all the electricity. Miranda gets the entrances, the clothes, the silence, the lines people still quote. She gets the smartest argument in the movie and the most cinematic presence on screen. So what happens when a film condemns a system, but makes the system look better than the escape? This is the question underneath the whole story. The film launders exploitation through style. It makes abuse look like elegance and burnout look like taste. It turns a nightmare job into something you would pin to a mood board and defend to your friends. Miranda is dangerous because the cruelty does not look like cruelty. It looks like standards. If you've seen this movie, you remember the Cerulean speech scene. Andy laughs at fashion. Miranda and the team are choosing between two belts for a shoot, the kind of decision that involves real money and real taste, and Andy smirks. She thinks she's above it. Miranda stops everything. She doesn't yell, she doesn't insult Andy directly. She traces the exact journey of Andy's supposedly casual blue sweater, from Oscar de la Renta's runway, through department stores, through discount bins, and explains calmly that every choice Andy thinks she made freely was actually shaped by decisions made in rooms Andy pretends not to care about. The scene does two things at the same time. First, it humiliates Andy. But the bigger thing is that it proved Miranda understands how power moves through the world better than anyone else in the film. That is why the scene stayed with people. Miranda's being awful, but she's also making the better argument. She gives the villain intellectual authority. She makes Andy look naive. She makes the fashion industry feel like something that is everywhere and impossible to opt out of. And that is the movie's instability in a single moment. It wants us to see Miranda as toxic, but it also lets Miranda explain the world better than anyone else on screen. The Cerulean speech is the moment the movie's critique starts losing to its own fantasy. From there, the story stops being about whether Andy can survive Miranda and becomes about whether Andy can enter Miranda's world without being fluent in its values. Let's talk about the surface level version of this story. Andy arrives at Runway magazine thinking she is above the fashion world. She wants the job as a stepping stone. She doesn't respect the industry, she doesn't understand the codes, she thinks competence and ambition can be separated from the culture that surrounds them. She thinks she can pass through the machine without the machine touching her. Then it starts working. Not through one dramatic corruption scene, not through a single moment where she sells her soul, but through repetition. First, it's the clothes, then the posture, then the pace of her answers, then the demands that would have horrified her a month earlier start sounding like the price of being taken seriously. The moral line does not snap, it drifts. Andy doesn't just get a makeover, she gets absorbed. The job starts teaching her that being good at it means being available at all hours. That being chosen by Miranda means letting someone else decide which parts of your life are disposable and which parts are useful. None of this is framed as weakness. Andy is smart. She learns fast. That's the problem. She gets good at the job before she understands what the job is doing to her. And once she starts succeeding, success stops looking like balance and starts looking like obedience. Movies about a toxic workplace has a trick. This one's trick is specific, and it has a name. The Devil Wears Prada makes a toxic workplace feel aspirational by dressing it in beauty, competence, and taste. Runway is clearly abusive. Assistants are disposable. Boundaries do not exist. Personal lives are treated as evidence of insufficient commitment. Miranda's approval comes so rarely that it functions like a drug, just scarce enough to keep people chasing it. But the film doesn't make the system look ugly, it makes it look stunning. Runway is an abusive workplace, shot like a dream job. The movie washes the ugliness through beauty until the ugliness becomes hard to see. Even the worst parts of that job are framed like proof that you made it. This created a split inside the audience that never fully resolves. Morally, we know Andy should leave. Aesthetically, we want her to stay. The critique is on the page, the fantasy is on the screen, and the screen wins. Look at the evidence the movie gives us. Miranda's entrance, everyone panics. The office scrambles, the whole floor tightens up. It should feel oppressive, but it's staged like the arrival of a queen, and it is thrilling to watch. Andy's makeover, styled by costume designer Patricia Field, who did the same work on Sex and the City, is the montage where she finally starts dressing like she belongs. It's supposed to show absorption. It's supposed to signal that the machine is working on her, but it plays like empowerment. It plays like she has leveled up. And then there's Paris, the point of deepest moral crisis, where Andy's compromises finally catch up to her. It's the most glamorous stretch of the film. The fashion, the hotels, the parties, the proximity to power. Even Miranda's loneliness, the moment we see her without makeup, vulnerable, marriage falling apart, is designed to humanize the cost. But it also turns her into something tragic and untouchable at the same time. It makes her suffering feel like proof of how serious the game is, rather than evidence that the game is broken. The movie tells us Runway is ruining Andy's life. The problem is that Runway still looks like the most important room she could ever enter. Part of what makes this work, and what makes Miranda Priestly one of the great power performances in modern film, is how the movie stages power itself. Miranda doesn't need to rage. Everyone around her has already learned to do the reacting for her. Instead, she whispers, and people move. Her coat and bag land on an assistant's desk, no eye contact, no acknowledgement that another person is receiving them, and the office reorganizes itself around the gesture before Miranda reaches her chair. When she says, "That's all," conversations do not wind down, they stop. 2 words, delivered without looking up, and someone's entire afternoon restructures itself around what was not said. Had Miranda been constantly screaming, the audience would reject her. A loud tyrant is easy to diagnose, but Meryl Streep plays her as calm, surgical, almost bored by her own dominance. The quieter she is, the harder everyone else works to fill the silence. And that silence is what sells it, because an audience watching a character who never loses composure starts to confuse composure with competence. That was a deliberate choice. Streep has said she based Miranda on Clint Eastwood and director Mike Nichols, not on any fashion figure, including the editor-in-chief of Vogue, Anna Wintour. Eastwood never raises his voice on set. People have to lean in just to hear him. At the first table read, the rest of the cast expected a loud barking boss. When Streep came in whispering, the room went quiet. She had found something more dangerous than volume. Watch the opening. Word travels through the building that Miranda is on her way, and the whole office flinches before she even arrives. People change shoes in the elevator. Emily's voice goes tight. By the time Miranda actually walks in, the panic has already done all the work for her. She doesn't have to perform authority. The room performs it on her behalf. The camera gives her stillness while everyone else scrambles, and stillness on screen reads as the thing worth wanting. Other characters in this movie chase power around the room. Miranda lets the room come to her. That's the difference, and it is why she stays in your head. The film arrived in a 2000s world where ambition, fashion, magazine culture, and workplace sacrifice were already wrapped in glamour. But in the years since, the internet learned to aestheticize ambition even more aggressively than Runway ever did. Now even exhaustion has to be packaged correctly. Burnout has an outfit. Overwork has a morning routine. Emotional detachment gets reframed as healthy boundaries. That's why Miranda plays differently now than she did in 2006. That's why the same internet that mocks toxic bosses also turns Miranda into a reaction gif for competence, taste, and don't waste my time energy. Back then, she looked like a warning about what happens when a woman survives a brutal system by becoming brutal herself. She was the cost of playing a game designed to destroy the people inside it. Now, she can look like the final boss of competence culture. Not because she's healthy, but because she's effective. She never apologizes. She never seems uncertain. She gets results and doesn't care who's comfortable and how she gets them. The modern viewer is more likely to admire survival inside the machine than escape from it. That's why Andy's ending feels less satisfying to some audiences now. Walking away is morally clean. Staying powerful is more seductive. Even Nate, Andy's boyfriend, once read as the grounding force in her life, now gets treated online as the person who held her back. Miranda looks different now because the culture moved closer to her. This puts her in a strange category. Characters who were supposed to reveal the sickness of a status system but became mascots for it instead. This is where Miranda becomes part of a stranger pattern. Characters who were written as warnings then remembered as avatars. The suit, the apartment, the business card, the morning routine. The perfect surface hiding a rotten value system. That's Patrick Bateman. And Miranda Priestly belongs closer to that conversation than people want to admit. Not because their behavior is the same, obviously it's not. She might be mean, but she's not a serial killer. But both characters are perfectly adapted to sick status systems. Both are made legible by taste. Both exist in worlds where cruelty can pass as competence if it looks expensive enough. The difference is that American Psycho makes the status monster grotesque. It gives you blood. It gives you sweat. It forces the audience to look at the horror underneath the surface. The Devil Wears Prada makes the status monster chic. Patrick Bateman needed blood to reveal what his world actually costs. Miranda only needed a coat, and that's what makes her so slippery. Miranda being cruel is not the disturbing part. The disturbing part is that her environment rewards it. Her industry celebrates it. Her employees internalize it. And so do we. The movie works because part of us wants what is destroying Andy. The afterlife of The Devil Wears Prada reveals something about where the culture landed. People don't just want power. They want power that looks like Miranda's. Composed, untouchable, and never asking permission. The same culture that says it hates toxic work still loves the image of the person who cannot be rattled by it. The labels changed. The appetite did not. People build entire identities around their careers and then wonder why they feel so hollow. The question is never really whether the machine is worth it. The question is whether you are strong enough to survive it, and that framing is already Miranda's victory. Her appeal is not only about fashion, it's about relief. She never explains herself. She doesn't negotiate or beg for approval. Uncertainty doesn't seem to touch her. She does not have to be liked, and she never pretends to want to be. For people exhausted by the performance of modern professional life, the emails, the emotional labor, the constant self-branding, and the pressure to be both ambitious and likable, this looks like freedom. But the film shows the cost. Loneliness, emotional damage, disposable people. A life where excellence has replaced intimacy entirely. The movie puts both truths on screen. Miranda's power and her isolation. The tragedy is that the audience kept the power and forgot the cost. Miranda became aspirational because the culture forgot that being untouchable also means that you're alone. The movie tells us Andy wins by walking away. She drops the phone in the fountain. She gets the job she wanted. She smiles at Miranda through a car window, and Miranda, for just a second, smiles back. The ending says, you can leave. You can choose yourself. The system does not have to win. But the afterlife of the movie tells a different story. The Devil Wears Prada always had one extra charge running underneath it. People knew this world was real enough to gossip about. Lauren Weisberger's novel was widely read as a fictionalized glimpse inside the Vogue and Condé Nast universe, which meant the story was never just about Andy and Miranda. It was about access, a peek behind the door, the thrill of getting close to a world most people would never be invited into. And that is why the sequel matters. It's not selling the fantasy of leaving Runway, it's selling the fantasy of going back. Miranda, Andy, Emily, Nigel, the office, the coats, the hierarchy, all the things the first movie supposedly taught us to escape. The warning became branding. The critique became an aesthetic. That may be the most Miranda Priestly thing of all. Andy gets the healthier ending, Miranda gets the mythology. The movie built an exit door, then made everything inside the building more interesting than whatever waited outside. That's the trick it never fully solved. Andy's exit is right. It's healthy. It's earned. But after 90 minutes inside Runway, freedom cannot help feeling like subtraction. Because Miranda is the image, and sometimes culture does not reward the healthy choice. Miranda owns the movie. The film gave us a moral victory. The culture chose the coat. So once you see how easily a workplace nightmare can become a lifestyle fantasy, it changes how you watch a lot of movies about power. Because Miranda Priestly was not the last character the culture turned into a mood board. She was just one of the best dressed. Next time, we're looking at the movie where the abuse does not even bother wearing a disguise. Where the monster says out loud that the suffering is the point, and the audience still walked away thinking it was a love letter to greatness. Until then, please make sure to like and subscribe, and as always, please take care of yourself.